Good day, everyone. I am Paulo Colahara. Our group will share to you about concept attainment. The concept attainment model of teaching is a strategy developed by Jerome Bruner. It's an inductive teaching method in which learners identify the attributes in a data set and then define the category they belong to and its characteristics. It requires students to identify patterns, discuss with their peers, and put their intuition to the task. Based on our interpretation from our resources, there are five characteristics of concept attainment model. The first characteristic is that it is an inductive strategy. It encourages students to find out what things have in common rather than telling it to them directly. It promotes better retention on the part of the students. The second characteristics is that it uses yes and no columns as visual aid so students can analyze better. When showing examples, the teacher should be prepared to share yes and no examples. The more complex the concept for the learner, the more examples the teacher should be prepared to share or give the students. The third characteristics is that the teacher is more of a facilitator rather than an instructor. He sets the learning environment to be interactive among the learners and he should stay quiet while the students think about the concept of the given examples, and he should let the students figure out the concept on their own. The teacher can only do short lecture to clarify or extend students' thinking if they get stuck or they can no longer figure out the concept or the examples that which were given to them. The fourth characteristics is that the students interact, think and talk and discusses ideas and patterns that they see in the given columns by the teacher. They only discuss among themselves, allowing them to tell their ideas more freely than telling it to their teachers. So they become more comfortable because they're sharing it to their classmates and not to their teachers. The fifth characteristics is that the students are encouraged to compare and contrast, allowing them to practice their analytical skills, and then later on, they synthesize the main concept. These are the steps for conducting or executing the concept attainment model. So the first phase or the first step is that the teacher gives grouped examples. At least three examples for each column should be given to the students. The task of the students is to think about the patterns and differences between the columns. After some time, the teachers allow them to discuss about their observations with a peer or a group mate depending on what the teachers assigned them. The teacher's task is to monitor if they're doing the task given to them, and he should not intervene or give any clue or hint to the students. The second phase or the second step is that the teacher gives more examples, but this time the examples are ungrouped. The students will be the ones to decide to which group or column each example goes based on their observation on the first group of examples. After grouping the examples, the teacher once again allows the students to talk to each other to compare and discuss their answers. The students will be allowed to change their answers. The teacher's task once again is to monitor if the students are doing the task, and he should not intervene or give any clue or hint to the students. The third phase or the third step is the teacher now reveals the correct answer to the students. It is important that the teacher asks lots of students to share their answers, or if it's possible, all of ask all of the students to share their answers before he dramatically reveals the correct answer. And then the fourth phase or the fourth step The teacher will now engage the students to a whole group discussion. The whole class will be discussing, and the students will explain their reasons for their answers, revealing the patterns and differences that they observed or they discovered. Now, the fifth phase or the fifth step is now the teacher will reveal the academic vocabulary. And then the last phase or the last step is that the teacher now lets the students practice what they have learned through some other activities. Or he can now teach those students who got lost in the activity or those students who are not able to relate to the activity. Here are some situations where we can apply concept attainment model. One example is when we teach definition. The students not just memorize the definitions, but they also understand the concept behind the terms. Another example is when we teach theories in science or in mathematics. We can just give them examples and then let them discover the theories on their own. Another example is when we teach vocabulary and concepts. These are only few examples of situations where we can apply concept attainment model. There are a lot more depending on the teacher, the students, the topic, and the resources.
Hello, my name is Era Joyce Anshar, and I am here to give you a specific example on how the concept attainment is applied in teaching. We already have the idea that teaching through concept attainment would mean that a teacher would start with the smaller details before arriving at the bigger picture. Of course, before getting to the latter, it is important that the students would make sense of the smaller details given to them. Think of it as a reversed way of the typical classroom discussion where the teacher introduces the topic and only after that would the subtopics and other details be discussed further. But going back, once the students are given the small details, they would start to organize it in a manner of categorization. Categorization may be applied by giving out samples of words or even pictures. In this example, words will be used. They will be introduced and demonstrated by the teacher. Say, for example, 10 seemingly different and individual words are shown to the students in a word pool. They are rhyme, playwright, meter, stage, play, sound, stanza, screenplay, poet, and actors and actresses. The teacher then sets a table divided into two columns, one being labeled as yes and the other labeled as no. To spearhead this activity, the teacher will start by placing in some of the words in their respective columns. Meter, rhyme, and poet goes to the yes column. Meanwhile, playwright, stage, and play are placed in the no column. The students then gather their observations as to why these words are grouped together in the yes and no columns. The students will be given the time to infer what attributes do the words in the yes column have in common, and the same thing with the words in the no column. At this point, the students would have gotten a slight idea on which word should be placed next on their respective places. The remaining words will then be continued to be grouped. The process of categorizing words will continue until the last word. And by this point, the students would have gotten the bigger picture already. Or, in other words, they are able to identify the attributes similar and different from the other, which made them distinguish the concept that is being demonstrated through those smaller details. Once everybody has grasped the concept, the teacher then proceeds with a further discussion on the topic that is introduced through concept attainment.
So that's it for our presentation. Thank you very much for listening.